Hi, I'm going to be talking about contract grading. I'm Jasmina Najjar, and I teach academic writing and technical communication at the American University of Beirut. So, you're probably wondering, what is contract grading? In a nutshell, contract grading is an alternative to traditional assessment for an entire course. So it's very different to deciding that assignment A is 20% and assignment B is 30%. It's a very different approach. It's basically an agreement between the teacher and the students. It's an approach that acknowledges that learning is a journey. It definitely takes into consideration issues of equity, which is quite important. It's also an opportunity for students to have a little bit of flexibility in choosing their learning path. And it works quite well for writing courses and many other types of courses, especially those that care about the process and not just about the end product. What does this all mean? It basically means that students do not get grades or points for each activity and assignment. They're not punished for mistakes, and students don't get surprises. In turn, this kind of frees you as a teacher from grade negotiation and point justification. Instead, students really benefit from authentic feedback that focuses on improving their work. And it's an approach that rewards engagement and effort. And it's an opportunity to really focus on learning and on experimentation. Now, before I jump in and I tell you how to go about contract grading and exactly what it is, I just want to mention a few challenges. I do admit that some students feel uncomfortable with contract grading because it's very new to them. I also acknowledge that, many universities have certain restrictions. For example, perhaps you're teaching a multi-section course and you're not allowed to have a lot of flexibility within that multi-section course, and you have to include certain assignments. Some universities might have a policy that students have to have X% of a course grade before the last day of withdrawal. And those present some challenges, obviously, to contract grading. But luckily, there are some suggestions which can help you work around that. For example, you could potentially provide your grade so far updates during the semester, such as maybe mid-semester. You can create rubrics for all the assignments and activities that fall under what we will call the major assignment commitments as a guide, just so that students know the kind of quality of work they need to submit and maintain. And, while normally contract grading should give students a say in deciding which assignments they will complete to get a certain grade, you might have to consider a modified form of contract grading where perhaps core required assignments are non-negotiable, but lower stake assignments, activities, and commitments are negotiable. So you're probably wondering now, how do we approach contract grading? And I'd like to point out that there are many, many ways to approach contract grading, and there are in fact many subcategories of contract grading. But here's a very practical suggestion, and this is actually what I do with my students. I set a default grade for the course, for example, B. Then once you've done that, decide what major assignment commitments are needed to achieve the default grade. For example, writing a research proposal with a literature review and annotated bibliography, submitting a 15-page APA-style research paper, giving an oral presentation, and you can adapt and add as needed. Definitely detail all of the major assignment commitments in the contract, and make sure it's clear that the work submitted has to meet a level of, basic expectations. And that if, you know, the basic expectations aren't met, then students might be invited to redo these particular work, you know, assignments to meet these basic expectations. Once you've done that, you can then decide what your class commitments are going to be. So that students can achieve the default grade. For example, maybe coming to class having read the material beforehand, or engaging in class discussions. Make sure you also detail the class commitments in the contract. Now, if a student meets all the major assignments and all the class commitments, and fulfills obviously the course objectives and outcomes, then let the holistic assessment of the overall quality of their work determine how much higher than the default grade their final grade will be. Will it be a B+, an A-, an A, and an A+, depending on how much they have exceeded expectations. If they've just met expectations, then they will get the default grade of B. Now, if a student doesn't meet the terms of the contract in full, they've missed out assignments, they've missed out on some class commitments, then their final grade will be lower than the default grade. And it could be B-, C-, you know, C+, C-, etc. Detail how this works though, so that it's very clear and transparent to students. Now, there are concerns that I'm sure you probably have now that I've explained contract grading, such as, won't quantity replace quality? Well, that might happen with some forms of contract grading, but it will not happen if you make quality key in achieving a higher grade and you clearly define what you mean by quality. For example, evidence of in-depth analysis and close reading, fluent writing with voice, what have you. You're probably wondering as well, won't this result in grade inflation? Well, it could, but it doesn't have to. It depends what default grade you decide on. You could decide on a default grade of C, for example. And it also depends on how you holistically assess performance throughout the semester to give a student a grade at the end of the semester. And another concern you might have is, you know, how do students react to contract grading? Now, from experience over the past few semesters that I've been using contract grading, you know, some students, not all mind you, but some students feel anxious at first. But at the end of the semester, when I invite students to give me feedback, the vast majority actually like contract grading, and they said that it helped them feel motivated, feel rewarded, and feel less stressed as a result. So if you're interested to learn more about contract grading, a lot has been written and said about contract grading and labor-based grading, which is a specific kind of contract grading, which you can definitely check out. You can also check out lots of examples of grading contracts online so that you can get inspired and see what works with your particular classes and the courses that you're teaching. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.